I call up Kaari Reimus, if she's still around. She is. From the Estonian University of Life Science in Tartu, Estonia. I know that Estonia has gone through quite some developments, so please let us know what the current situation is.
Thank you. First, I would like to thank the World Buiatrics organization for inviting me to speak and audience for coming. I would like to present you the study about on-farm cattle mortality and related risk factors in Estonian dairy herds. Why is on-farm mortality important? As we know, involuntary loss of an animal causes economical consequences to farmers in the form of value of the dead animal, loss of production, and costs for herd replacement. Herds with higher mortality suffer higher morbidity, which is related with costs of treatments, veterinary expenses, etc. On-farm mortality is an indicator of animal health and welfare. In the EU, the farmers are committed to register data about births, movements, and exits of animals on a routine basis, making registry databases an excellent source of the data that can be used in evaluating mortality in the cattle population and making conclusions about their welfare status. Before we continue, let me enlighten you a little about the country. Estonia is located south of Finland. It is one of the 3 Baltic countries. Total area of Estonia is over 45,000 square kilometers, and our human population is 1.3 million. We have more than 1,500 islands, diverse terrain spans, many lakes, and approximately 50% of Estonia is covered with forest. As follows, some facts about the Estonian dairy cattle population. In 2015, we had a little over 90,000 dairy cows, owned by 2,049 farmers. Number of cows has decreased 6% from 2014 due to Russian embargo for milk and milk products and loss of production quota, leading to overproduction and low milk price. 18% of our farms are small herds, which are mostly family farms, and the proportion of those herds is decreasing each year. Around 25% of herds are medium size, and 57% are large herds with more than 400 cows. Most of the large-size herds are modernized during the last 15 years. These are open freestall barns with parallel or carousel milking or insulated barns with robot milking system. Commonly, these new farms use innovative technique and are very modern and use less manpower. These pictures illustrate the typical farms in Estonia. On the upper part of the slide, 2 pictures are taken from a family farm with around 50 lactating dairy cows, whereas on the bottom, the picture characterizes a large commercial farms with around 1,500 cows. Coming back to the study, our aim was to describe dairy cattle mortality in Estonia, identify causes of death and euthanasia, and identify animal cohorts with high and low mortality risk. Results from this would allow us to compare animal welfare with other populations. Understanding reasons of mortality and related risk factors would help to improve herd health by applying preventive measures and would enable us to plan further studies. Due to diversity of Estonian dairy cattle population in terms of herd structure and herd size, this study could provide relevant information to other countries which are moving towards intensification and large production farms. The study period in this study was from the beginning of 2013 to the end of 2014. The definition for a dairy herd was that the herd had to have more than 75% of the animals of dairy breeds. For mortality rate assessment and risk factor analysis, data from Estonian Agricultural Registers and Information Board was acquired. Total of over 360,000 animals from over 2,500 herds were included. Due to different baseline hazard across animals of different age, it was not possible to include all the data into one model. So because of that, 3 separate models were created for animals of 3 age bands: cattle younger than 3 months, 3 to 24 months, and over 24 months by using Weibull proportional hazards model with herd as shared frailty effect. The event of interest was on-farm mortality consisting of unassisted death and euthanasia. For finding mortality reasons, we used data of Estonian livestock performance recording, which reflects farmers' stated reasons for each exit event. We were able to identify reasons of death for over 11,000 cows, almost 9,000 heifers, and over 6,000 young bulls. This slide describes the total number and proportion of outcomes during the 2-year study period. Approximately 16.5% of the animals were slaughtered for meat production. 3 animals were slaughtered for diagnostic purposes, 7% died unassisted, 0.2% were euthanized, 23% were exported, and 0.1% disappeared, and around 53% of the animals survived until the end of the study period and were right-censored. Including death and euthanasia, mortality rate per 100 animal years was 6.95. In the present figure, crude mortality rate estimates in female and male cattle are presented. I would like to point out the difference of the y-axis, and also the age categories are different for the sexes. In female animals, the analysis was done in 7 age categories, and for male cattle, there are 4 age bands, due to the small number of observations in old males. Graph of the mortality rate in females shows a typical reverse J-shaped pattern, being highest in the youngest age category, lowest in heifers aged 12 to 18 months, with a gradual increase after that. For male cattle, the mortality rate is also the highest in the youngest age category, and then it decreases significantly and stays fairly low. Risk factor analysis for on-farm dairy calf mortality aged less than 3 months identified that male sex calves had significantly higher mortality hazard than females. Estonian Holstein cattle acquired significantly higher mortality hazard compared to our second most common dairy breed, Estonian Red. Mortality hazard was significantly higher for herds holding more than 400 animal years, and regional differences were not significant in this model, but the variable acted as a confounder and was therefore retained in the model. Risk factor analysis for dairy cattle aged 3 to 24 months identified an interaction between age category and sex, showing that hazard of on-farm mortality was lowest in 12 to 18 months old heifers and highest in 3 to 12 months old heifers. Regarding herd size, the mortality hazard was significantly higher in herds over 400 animal years. Estonian Red breed cattle had lower mortality hazard compared to Holsteins, and the hazard of mortality was also lowest in southwest region. Risk factor analysis for dairy cattle over 24 months reveals that Estonian Holstein breed cattle had higher mortality hazard compared to Estonian Red. A significant interaction was present between herd size and age category, meaning that the effect of age depended on herd size. In order to simplify, the hazard of mortality increased in larger herd as well as for older animals. The hazard of mortality was lowest in all regions compared to baseline category Northeast region. Coming to farmer-stated reasons, the main reasons for dairy cow mortality were metabolic and digestive disorders and feet and claw disorders. These 2 classes of reasons could be attributed to 63.7% of all on-farm death events. Metabolic and digestive disorders occurred in cattle aged 5 years, median age 5 years, and feet and claw disorders occurred in cattle with median age 4.3 years. What is very interesting is that euthanasia was performed only in 2.8% of the cases. The main farmer-stated reasons for heifer and young bull mortality were metabolic and digestive disorders, respiratory and infectious diseases, and other unknown reasons. These 3 classes accounted over 85% of reasons associated with young stock mortality. According to the very low age, it could be concluded that diarrhea is the predominant cause of death in calves. And also here you can see that the proportion of euthanasias is only 1.3%. So coming to the discussion and conclusions, comparing our study with other research turned out to be complicated. First, mortality can be calculated differently. Second, our study included the whole dairy population, where many studies include only cows. Studies are also difficult to compare directly to the fact that some of these included losses that occurred during the first 24 hours after birth, whereas the study using registry data may miss the true mortality cases occurring during the first week of life. We can roughly compare our study to studies in Germany and France, and Estonian dairy mortality is in the upper range of what those studies have found. The proportion of euthanasias was very low in the study. Unfortunately, the proportion of euthanasia is rarely reported in previous research, but compared to a Danish study in 2004, the proportion of euthanasias is considerably lower. This indicates that we might have a lower welfare status in our herds. Continuing with risk factors, higher mortality hazard was present for animals kept in larger herds. The reason for that might be reduced individual attention, different housing conditions, intensive production. Estonian Holstein breed cattle experiencing higher mortality hazard compared to Estonian red breed cattle. According to Estonia's production data, Holstein breed cows have higher milk yield, which is shown to be a predisposing factor for production-related diseases. Male gender calves are higher risk of dying compared to females because of biological features and lower market value. And I think the most important question is how can we reduce on-farm mortality? In adult cows, it is important to put more resources into prevention of metabolic and digestive tract diseases and feet and claw disorders, and to improve calf survival, prevention of calf diarrhea and respiratory diseases in the pre-weaning period is obligatory. Thank you.